I don't know if I should tell you this, but I don't know who may be listening. There may be a group of people don't want to get rid of me. They don't want me here anymore.
That was Michael Jackson not performing, not in character, not on a stage. That was him in a real room, visibly shaken, talking about the people who ran the very industry that made him the biggest entertainer alive. So the question isn't whether Michael was afraid, he clearly was. The real question is who those people were, and why some of the most powerful names in entertainment, Oprah Winfrey and Sean Combs among them, were apparently just as afraid of Michael Jackson as he was of them. Ice Cube has a theory, and he's been saying it out loud for 30 years.
Throughout the years, black artists have been taken advantage of. And it's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. And like Mrs. Sharpton was saying, people from James Brown to Sammy Davis Jr., some of the real pioneers that inspired me to be the entertainer that I am. These artists are always on tour because if they stop touring, they would totally go broke. And it's been, the record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists. Yes, and Tommy Mottola, the president of the record division, is a mean, he's a racist, and he's very devilish. So I need your support, not just for me. When you fight for me, you're fighting for all black people.
He named the president of Sony by name, called him devilish, and accused the entire label system of conspiring against black artists, in front of a crowd on the record with cameras rolling. That's not a man who still cares about being invited back to the table. That's a man who has decided the table itself is the problem. What makes it even more significant is where Michael was standing when he said it. He wasn't some washed-up act lashing out because the spotlight moved on. He was the most commercially successful entertainer in history, calling out the people who'd made billions off his back. He gave the world Thriller, Off the Wall, Bad, Dangerous. He was without question their most valuable asset. And then he stopped being grateful and started pointing. Here's the thing people miss. Right around the time Michael began challenging the machine publicly, the narrative around him flipped almost overnight. The tabloid nicknames, the rumors, the late-night punchlines. All of it accelerated at the exact same moment he started naming names. You can decide for yourself whether that's a coincidence. Ice Cube has been making the same argument about the entertainment industry for 3 decades. Not because it's a good bit, and not because it went viral, but because he watched it unfold in real time and made the deliberate choice not to go quiet about it.
Who benefits and profits off our bickering in our division? You know, it's like follow the money. I don't know their names, Bill, but if you follow the money, you go high enough, you start to see, okay, A lot of artists are frustrated with this kind of music making. You know, a lot of people, you know, feel like they're being controlled by the label. This is how they do it. Telling you what songs to sing, what hooks to do, what songs, you know, you can do your song, that's fine. That's an album cut. But the single is what we all say is the single. So you have, you know, the record company pushing the narrative, you know, and you know, so this to me is in somewhat you know, some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full.
Don't rush past that last part. The same people who own the labels own the prisons. That isn't a conspiracy theory from a message board. It's a structural observation about how private equity and media conglomerates actually overlap, and it's been documented. Cube isn't guessing here. He's been inside this industry long enough to see who oils the machine, how it turns, and exactly who it was designed to crush. What makes his position credible is that he walked away. He built his own lane, absorbed the career consequences of not playing along, and kept talking anyway. So when he describes the club and who it protects, he's describing it as someone who deliberately chose to leave, not someone who got kicked out and is bitter about it. Michael Jackson, by contrast, spent decades as the single most valuable person inside that machine. He didn't watch it from the outside. He helped build the infrastructure that made it run. And then he turned around and started describing it to the public. That is a completely different kind of threat. Here's the version of Michael's story that almost never gets proper airtime. Not the accusations, not the tabloid shorthand, but his own account of what it actually felt like to be turned into a target.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. As I have maintained from the very beginning, I am hoping for a speedy end to this horrifying experience to which I have been subjected. I will say that I am particularly upset by the handling of this mass matter by the incredible, terrible mass media. At every opportunity, the media has dissected and manipulated these allegations to reach their own conclusions. I ask all of you to wait and hear the truth before you label or condemn me. Don't treat me like a criminal, because I am innocent. I have been forced to submit to a dehumanizing and humiliating examination by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department and the Los Angeles Police Department earlier this week. They served a search warrant on me which allowed them to view and photograph my body, including my penis, my buttocks, my lower torso, thighs, and any other area that they wanted. The warrant further stated that I had no right to refuse the examination or photographs, and if I failed to cooperate with them, they would introduce that refusal at any trial as an indication of my guilt. It was the most humiliating ordeal of my life. One that no person should ever have to suffer. One that no person should ever have to suffer. But if this is what I have to endure to prove my innocence, my complete innocence, so be it.
Pay attention to what he's actually describing there. This isn't a man being shielded by wealth and fame. This is someone being walked through a systematized public humiliation, step by step, with the media waiting outside. The investigation found no physical evidence. The case was closed within a year. And yet that part, the no evidence, case closed part, received a fraction of the coverage that the original accusations did. Ask yourself whose interests were served by that imbalance.
In 1993, the very first allegation came against him, made from a screenwriter in the industry. He was both a screenwriter and a dentist named Dr. Evan Chandler. He was based in Los Angeles, and his accusation was that Jackson had sexually abused his 13-year-old son, Jordan. Horrific. And then the LAPD began a criminal investigation. But the investigation actually found no physical evidence against Jackson, and it was closed. The case was closed less than 1 year later. Now, that should have stopped the media from reporting on it. Michael Jackson wasn't guilty. but we know the media has never let facts get in the way of them having a good time. They broke the allegations worldwide, which led Michael Jackson to cancel the second leg of his Dangerous World Tour. And something weird happened. His sister, LaToya Jackson, came right out and she said, and when people prodded her, she admitted that it was her husband who had forced her to make that statement.
His own sister was coerced into making a public statement against him, and when the pressure came off, she admitted it. Think about the scale of influence required to make that happen, to get a family member on record, and then think about who in the industry had both the motive and the infrastructure to apply that kind of pressure at that specific moment. When Ice Cube talks about guardrails that shape which stories get through and which don't, this is exactly what that looks like when it's deployed against a person.
You can imagine now my understanding of the facts surrounding the MJ case, that he went to war with Sony, one of these major companies, and he was winning that war. And then suddenly the world was told that Michael Jackson is or somebody is an anti-Semite, the exact same tactics that they tried to use on me. Someone pressed a button and there was a full court press effort to cancel Candace Owens by trying to convince the people that she just went crazy and anti-Semitic. Thank goodness I'm not from Hollywood. They would have institutionalized me and said that it was for my good. There are a ton of people in Hollywood who, when they have tried to speak out about things that are happening to them, have received this same treatment. I believe this is what happened to Britney Spears.
Strip away the politics completely and just look at the mechanism she's describing. Artist challenges the industry. Artist starts winning. Industry doesn't fight the argument. It reframes the person making it. Suddenly, they're not a credible voice raising a legitimate concern. They're unstable. They're bigoted. They're dangerous. The goal was never to win the debate. The goal was to make the person impossible to defend in public. Michael Jackson was labeled Wacko Jacko first, then something much worse. And the story of his actual legal war with Sony, the war he was winning, got buried under everything else the machine decided to push instead. That isn't coincidence. That is a coordinated response with a very long documented history. To understand Oprah's relationship with Michael, you have to go back to the night she came to Neverland. It was sold to the world as a rare, intimate conversation, the kind that only happens when someone truly trusts you. Watch it again with fresh eyes and it looks like something entirely different.
There was a story about you wanting to have a little white boy play you in a Pepsi commercial.
That is so stupid. That's the most ridiculous, horrifying story I've ever heard. Why would I want a white child to play me? I'm a black American. I'm proud to be a black American. I am proud of my race. I am proud of who I am.
Then let's go to the thing that is most discussed about you, I think, is the fact that the color of your skin is obviously different than it was when you were younger. Are you bleaching your skin, and is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
Okay, number one, I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help, okay? But when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me. What about all the millions of people who sit out in the sun to become darker, to become other than what they are? Nobody says nothing about that.
Count how many times she drags the conversation back to gossip. Every time he tries to explain his medical condition or speak about something real, she steers straight back toward the tabloid version of him. He had to defend his own skin and his own identity on live television, in his own home, to a woman who showed up under the banner of friendship. Millions of people watching at home experienced it as great television. For Michael, it was his entire sense of self being cross-examined for ratings. Through Ice Cube's framework of gatekeepers and narrative control, Oprah in that room isn't a journalist. She's enforcing the version of Michael the industry needed the public to hold on to. Then, years after he died, she made a second choice.
But for me, this moment transcends Michael Jackson. It is much bigger than any one person.
If they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail. Winfrey said of her decision to do the special, "I haven't had that much hateration since I did the puppy episode with Ellen DeGeneres." Talk show host continued, "But when I saw that documentary, I realized that a lot of people are going to be triggered by watching it, and a lot of people will not understand what the pattern is." Winfrey explained, "People call it molestation, but there is a big seducing that goes on, and that was important enough for me to take the hateration for."
She sat down with accusers from a documentary that has since been challenged in court, on a platform built specifically to drive those accusations into the mainstream. And he wasn't alive to respond to a single word of it. When some of those claims subsequently fell apart under legal scrutiny, she didn't rush to correct the record. For someone who spent 3 decades helping shape how the world understood Michael Jackson, that silence tells you something.
She said, "Something's happened to Michael. I don't think it's good." And it scared me because in 1998, Gail was and Gail called and said, "Something's happened to Princess Diana. I don't think it's good." So when I heard that, immediately I thought, oh my God. And
did you ever consider going to either the memorial service or the funeral?
No, I did not consider going to the memorial service or the funeral because I did not consider myself to be a friend of his. And I didn't want to be one of those people showing up just because it's Michael Jackson. I was someone who had interviewed him and at the time really had a lot of compassion for him.
Mm-hmm.
And
those feelings about him changed over the years?
I never knew, what the truth was.
She was inside his home. She built a primetime special around his name and his story. And then, once it no longer served her, she quietly revised the entire relationship down to, "I was someone who interviewed him." That's not a small revision, that's a rewrite of public memory, delivered calmly on television by someone who still had every platform available to her and used it to walk away clean. Now consider who she didn't walk away from. Harvey Weinstein had Oprah at his events, in his corner, warmly photographed at his premieres, for years, while his behavior was apparently an open secret across the industry.
Oprah and Harvey have been friends for over 2 decades. A lot of people use the argument that she didn't know about what he was doing, but that's impossible because everyone's known about Harvey Weinstein's reputation ever since the 90s. When he was getting canceled and exposed for everything that he has done, Oprah allegedly called him and offered her support. Rose McGowan tweeted out, "I'm glad more people are seeing the ugly truth of Oprah. I wish she were real, but she isn't."
Harvey Weinstein, warmth, protection, years of proximity, and quiet. Michael Jackson, who was never convicted of anything, who had a closed investigation with no physical evidence, who stated his innocence explicitly. He got a prime-time special after he died, when he couldn't respond to a single question. Once you see which direction that pattern consistently runs, it tells you exactly whose side of the machine Oprah was operating from.
They have to make the changes for us. They're a non-profit organization that is supposed to protect the welfare of the musical community. That's what it says on the mission statement. That's the truth. They work for us. We have the power. We decide what's hot. If we don't go, nobody goes. If we don't support, nobody supports. We control what's cool. We control what's hot. We control what your kids listen to, what they dance to. We control what's in video games. We control how they wear their pants, sag their pants. We control everything.
Here's what makes that clip important. That wasn't Ice Cube. That was Diddy, describing influence over the entire culture with the kind of easy confidence you only carry when you believe you're one of the people holding the levers. He wasn't describing himself as someone the machine works against. He was describing himself as someone the machine works for, which is exactly why Michael Jackson represented such a specific threat to someone in Diddy's position. Michael had seen that machine from the absolute top. He'd made it billions of dollars. He'd been inside the rooms. He knew what went on at those parties and inside those label meetings. If he'd ever sat down and decided to say everything, all of it, he could have pulled the curtain back on people whose entire public image depended on that curtain staying exactly where it was. That's not a physical threat. That's a receipts threat. And in that world, receipts are far more dangerous.
And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club. That pisses them off. What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with. You know who they are, and they definitely know who they are.
Cube has been saying this for 3 decades. Not because it gets him booked on talk shows, it doesn't. Not because it was trending, it's only trending now because events finally caught up to the argument. He's been saying it because he watched what happens to the people who see it clearly and refuse to stay quiet. Michael saw the same system from even further inside, surrounded by people whose entire financial reality depended on him staying useful and staying silent. The moment he stopped being willing to do either, the machine worked to turn him into something the public couldn't defend. Here's the full picture in plain terms. An artist at the absolute peak of his career names the people running the industry, calls them devilish, accuses them of conspiring against black artists, and says on camera that there are people who want him gone. Shortly after, his reputation collapses, his tour is canceled, and a media apparatus that found zero physical evidence treats him like a convicted man for the rest of his life. Ice Cube saw the same machine from the inside, walked away from it, and has been mapping exactly how it operates for 30 years. His description of guardrails, gatekeepers, and narrative engineering lines up almost word for word with what Michael was saying at those press conferences. Oprah and Diddy both built their empires inside that same system, and when Michael became a threat to it, neither of them stood on his side of the line. So, when people say Oprah and Diddy feared Michael Jackson, the fear was never about who he was. It was about what he knew, and what he'd already shown he was willing to say. Did they keep their distance because they believed the allegations, or because they knew exactly how much he'd seen behind those doors? And if the club Ice Cube describes is as real as the last few years have made it look, how many more people are quietly hoping the rest of it never surfaces? Hit subscribe. You won't miss what's next. Keep it real.